Hello guys, welcome back. Welcome back to another session of AZ-103 course. Now we are going to cover lesson 3 of module 4, which is Azure DNS. So in this module we are going to talk about domains and custom domains. How do you verify a custom domain? What are Azure DNS zones? How do you create DNS record sets? What is DNS delegation? DNS for private zones, and then private zone scenarios. We'll be talking about a simple demonstration as well. More or less, this module is purely theoretical in nature, so there is a very little practical aspect to it. But since this is there within the course, I will be teaching you this as well, right? So let's first talk about domains and custom domains. When you create a subscription in Azure, there is a default domain name which is created, which is in the form of domain name.onmicrosoft.com. If I go back to my Azure portal and if I go to right hand side and if I click on this icon which is available to me in here, just hover over this button and you will see that my domain name is trainer0407outlook.onmicrosoft.com. This domain is by default created once this domain is by default created at the time when I was creating my Azure account. So this is required. You can also check it by going to the Azure Active Directory on the left hand side. There also you will see that your default domain or default directory is trainer0407.outlook.onmicrosoft.com. Basically, .onmicrosoft.com will be always there. It will be prefixed by the domain name that you have chosen. So in my case, how my domain become trainer0407 outlook, because my ID is trainer0407@outlook.com. So it automatically take some words from my ID and then used it followed by .onmicrosoft.com. In your case, let's suppose your ID is abc@outlook.com. Your account will be abcoutlook.onmicrosoft.com. That will be your domain. That means if I go to any users which are going to use my Azure portal, and if I try to add them, they should be in the form of like this: user1 @trainer0407 trainer0407 outlook.onmicrosoft.com, right? Because that is my domain and this is my username. But let's suppose you are working with a particular organization and you do not want to use this domain. You want to use your own custom domain. So in that kind of scenario, maybe you are coming from Google, so your domain will be google.com. Maybe you're coming from XYZ company, your domain will be xyz.com. So in that kind of scenario, how you can add a custom domain onto Azure? You can do this by going to this custom domain name tab appearing inside Azure AD, and there you can click on add custom domain, and whichever domain you want to add, let's say xyz.com, xyz is your domain. Click on this and click on add domain. Once you do this, Microsoft says, okay, we are going to add this domain for you, but first let us know that you own this domain. How do you own this domain? How do you prove the ownership of a domain? You prove the ownership of a domain by having access to the DNS where that particular domain is hosted. So Microsoft says, if you are the owner of xyz.com, take the value of this txt record in here or the value of this mx record in here and paste it inside your DNS record available within your DNS server where this domain is hosted. So if you want to add your own custom domain to Azure, you have to either write this txt or an mx record into your DNS into your DNS, and once that is there, you will come back over here and click on verify, and then your custom domain will be added. Then you can use your users on that particular domain. Okay, so you can customize, change the name, and after the custom name is added, it must be verified, which is available in the next topic. Now, a DNS zone. What is an Azure DNS zone? Okay, let's go back to portal and let's go back to DNS zone in here. Let's search for DNS zone and click on DNS zones in here. So what is a DNS zone? I'm going to create one in a resource group which is mine own, and I'm going to give it a name, which is my DNS zones. Let's make it like this, my DNS zone.com. Right, this is what I'm going to create next, and review and create. So what is a DNS zone? Like I said, if you know about what a DNS is, to go ahead and understand this course, you should have the basic understanding of DNS. So when you look at the DNS side, DNS also has zones. If you have ever seen a DNS server, it has a forward lookup zone and a reverse lookup zone, right? Where you create your records. When you create a zone on Azure to host your records, then it becomes Azure DNS zone. So Azure DNS zone is just like your own DNS zone which you host inside your DNS server, where you can keep your records, your DNS records. But the only difference between this and your DNS server hosted DNS zone is that this is available to you on Azure rather than onto your on-premises environment or your self-hosted DNS. Okay, just like your self-hosted DNS, it also has a name server setting. It also has startup authority records available in here, and you can go to record set, and you can start adding whatever kind of record which you want to add here, right? So this is just a place where you can add any kind of DNS records that you want. It's like a managed DNS service which has been given to you by Microsoft onto Azure portal, right? Now within DNS zones, we have record set. A record set is simply a collection of records that have the same name and are of the same type. For example, let's suppose I have maybe I have a subdomain which is mail, right? mail.mydnszones.com. So for that, if I want to create any kind of record, they will all be a part of a record set. So record set simply is a group of records which shares the same name. That is all what a record set is. You can add up to 20 records to any record set. A record set cannot contain two identical records, so they should always be different. You can change the drop down type, change the information required from there. Now, you can also do DNS delegation. If you already do not know about DNS delegation, make sure you read about it. Make sure you know about the basics of DNS. That is absolutely required to understand this, because I won't be telling you what the DNS zones are, because that is something which has to be discussed inside the Windows Server course. So make sure you know about DNS, what it does, how it works, what are the forward lookup zones, what are the name server records, what are the A records, TXT record, what are their usages. All these kind of basics you should know. Now DNS delegation, when you want to delegate a domain to Azure DNS, you must use the name server names provided by Azure DNS. I've already shown you name server records were available over there and startup authority records were available over there. Those records you can also use to delegate your DNS onto Azure DNS, right? For private domain, once you are using your own custom domains, in that kind of scenario also, DNS for private domains are also available within Azure environment. So if you go back in here, this is the DNS zone, which is by default there, but there is a DNS zone which is available for private DNS as well. Private DNS means DNS zones for your private, or you can say internal domains. That's also you can write and create in here, and you can link them with whatever virtual network you want to attach it to. So it can be attached to a virtual network, and from that virtual network, any kind of DNS resolution will be done with the help of this private DNS zone only. When you have a private DNS zone, what it does is it basically provides you a name resolution for your VMs within a VNet and between different virtual networks. It provides automatic hostname record management. It removes the need for custom DNS solutions. So if you do not want to have your own DNS server on Azure, you can use DNS for private domains. And it uses all common DNS records type available in Azure region. I'll give you more example of this. Let's go to Paint and let's create a Paint file. Okay, so those of you who don't know what does DNS do, DNS provides IP to name resolution and vice versa, and it also helps you find a particular service location. In Azure, let's suppose you have a virtual network. Within the virtual network, you have, let's say, a subnet, and within the subnet, you have lots of VM. Let's say this is VM1, VM2, and VM3. So let me do this. VM1, VM2, and VM3. Again, this is your subnet, and this is your virtual network. Let's suppose you have joined these VMs to a domain which is contoso.com, right? Let's take a sample domain in here. So what will be the name of this virtual machine? It will become vm1.contoso.com, this will become vm2.contoso.com, and this will become vm3.contoso.com. Now, similarly, let's suppose you have another virtual network, and here also you have a subnet, and here also you have 3 machines. Which are, let's say, VM4, VM5, and VM6, right? Now let's suppose VM1, let's take one virtual network scenario in here. Let's suppose VM1 wants to ping VM2, right? In this kind of scenario, what is the command that VM1 will use? VM1 will use ping vm2.contoso.com. In this kind of a scenario, the output that you will get, inside the output you will get the IP address of VM2, right? That's what happens, right? Because the name to IP resolution is done by Azure DNS, right? So in private DNS scenario, if you're talking within the VNet, private DNS zone, what it does is it automatically keeps the records for all the virtual machine which is there within that virtual network. Basically, their A records will be created within the private DNS, and whenever you try to communicate with other VMs through their names, their IP is automatically resolved because your entry is automatically given to your private DNS. That is within a single VNet environment. Private DNS can also be extended to multiple VNets. So if you are using private DNS between 2 virtual networks, then in the private DNS, more records will be added. Those records will be from the different VNets. So now you will have information about VM4, VM5, and VM6. So you will have A records for VM4, VM5, and VM6. That means if you want to ping vm4.contoso.com, since the A record is already there within the Azure private DNS, the output of this will basically contain the IP address of VM4, right? So what does this private DNS provides to us? It provides us a domain, a DNS environment where you can create your DNS zone and host your records, so that you can provide IP to name resolution and vice versa for your virtual machines which are running within a virtual network and between 2 virtual networks as well. Okay, that's the private DNS zone. Once you already have it, it removes the need for custom DNS, and it uses all common DNS record types. You can write A, CNAME, DXC, SRV, any kind of records over there, right? So this is the VM which wants to communicate with this VM. So it requests db.contoso.local, that is the name of this VM, and the Azure DNS will respond with a private IP of that, because the private IP and the name of virtual machine is hosted within the DNS for private domain as an A record, and that's why it is applied back. So in which scenario you can use private zones? When your virtual machines are there in the same virtual network, then you can use it, right? For example, if VM1 is trying to query VM2, it will be responded by the Azure DNS will respond back the IP address. Just like I said in the case of ping, if VM1 is trying to ping VM2 by its name, the response will be in the form of IP because Azure DNS is hosting the A record. Similarly, when you have two different VNets also, in that kind of scenario, you can use them. So this was it, guys. This was DNS, and in the next lesson we'll talk about network security group. DNS wasn't that much big, it's only theoretical in nature, but do understand what DNS zones are, what is a private DNS zone, what is Azure DNS, how do you add a custom domain. This information you should know. In the next lesson we'll discuss a very important part in networking, which is network security group. So please be there, and thank you so much for joining. Leave your questions within the comment section and I will answer them. Bye.